السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على Muhammad وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. The praises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and send the peace and blessings upon the Prophet, his family and his Sahaba. Al-Isra and Al-Mi'raj, the miraculous night journey from Mecca to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem and the ascent through the spheres of heavens. As for its exact date, it is still a controversial and no common consent has been reached. However, the majority of jurists is in favor of a date between 6 to 12 months prior to the migration to Medina. The following is the epitome of the details of the miraculous event narrated on the authority of Ibn al-Qayyim. The Messenger of Allah was carried in a body from the sacred mosque in Mecca to the distant mosque in Jerusalem on a horse called Al-Burraq, in the company of Jibreel. There he alighted, tethered the horse to a ring in the gate of the mosque, and led the prophets in prayer. After the Jibreel took him to the heavens on the same horse, when they reached the first heaven, Jibreel asked the guardian angel to open the doors of heaven. It was open, and he saw Adam alayhi salam, the guardian, the forefather of mankind. The Prophet ﷺ saluted him, and the other welcomed him and expressed his faith in Muhammad's prophethood. He saw the souls of martyrs on his right and those of the reckoned on his left. Jibreel then ascended with the Prophet to the second heaven, asked for the opening of the gate, and there he saw and saluted John, Yahya bin Zakaria, and Jesus, son of Mary. They returned the salutations and welcomed him and expressed their faith in his prophethood. Then they reached the third heaven, where they saw Yusuf, and saluted him. The latter welcomed the Prophet and expressed faith in his prophethood. The Prophet, in the company of Jibreel, then reached the fourth heaven, where he met Prophet Enoch, Idris, and saluted him. The Prophet Idris returned the salutations and expressed faith in his prophethood. Then he was carried to the fifth heaven, where he met Prophet Harun, and saluted him. The latter returned the salutation and expressed his faith in his prophethood. In the sixth heaven he met Moses, and saluted him. The latter returned the salutation and expressed his faith in his prophethood. Muhammad ﷺ, on leaving, saw that Moses began to weep. He asked about the reason. Moses answered that he was weeping because he witnessed a man sent after him as a messenger, Muhammad, who was able to lead more of his people to the paradise than he himself did. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ reached the seventh heaven and met Ibrahim ﷺ, and saluted him. The latter returned the salutation and expressed faith in his prophethood. Then he was carried to Sidrat al-Muntaha, the remotest lot tree, and was shown Al-Bayt al-Ma'mur, the much frequented house, which is like the Aqabah, the sacred house, encompassed daily by 70,000 angels, so that the angel who once encompassed it would not have their turn again till the resurrection. He was then presented to the divine presence and experienced the thrill of witnessing the divine glory and manifestation at the closest possible propinquity. There the Lord revealed unto his servant that which he revealed, and ordained 50 daily prayers for him. On his return he spoke to Musa that his followers had been enjoined to pray 50 times a day. Musa, addressing the Prophet, said, "Your followers cannot perform so many prayers. Go back to your Lord and ask for a remission in numbers." The Prophet did the same. Jibreel nodded, "Yes, if you desire," and ascended with him to the presence of Allah. The Almighty Allah, glory is to him, made the reduction of 10 prayers. He then descended and reported that to Musa, who again urged him to request for a further reduction. Muhammad ﷺ once again begged his Lord to reduce the number still further. He went again and again in the presence of Allah at the suggestion of Musa for reduction in the numbers of prayer, till these were reduced to 5 only. Musa again asked him to implore for more reduction, but he said, "I feel ashamed now of repeatedly asking my Lord for reduction. I accept and resigned to his will. When Muhammad went further, a caller was heard saying, I have imposed my ordinance and alleviated the burden of my servants. There is, however, some differences as regard to the issue whether the Prophet saw Allah with his physical eye or not. Some interpreters say that seeing Allah with his naked eyes was not confirmed. Ibn Abbas, on the other hand, say that the word ru'ya as used in the Noble Quran signifies the observation with the help of the eye. In Surah An-Najm, we read, then he approached and came closer. Al-Quran, chapter 53, verse 8. Here, he refers to the Archangel Jibreel, and this context is completely different from that in the prophetic tradition of Isra and Mi'raj, where the approach relates to that of the Lord. Glory is to him. Some significant suggestive incidents featured that night, the night of journey of the Prophet, of which we could mention few of them. The Prophet's breast was cleft by Jibreel, his heart extracted and washed with the water of Zamzam. In the same context, they were brought to him two gold vessels. There was milk in one, while the other was full of wine. He was asked to choose either of them, so he selected the vessel containing milk and drank it. He, the angel, said, you have been guided on al-fitrah, or you have attained al-fitrah. Had you selected wine, your nation would have been misled. The Prophet ﷺ told that he saw two manifest rivers, the Nile and the Euphrates. He had the opportunity to see Malik, the guardian of hell. Therein he saw those who unjustly eat up the property of the orphans. They were also the people who take usury, with bellies too big to be able to move around. He saw adulterers offer tasty fatty meals and rotten smell the one, but they make option for the latter. The licentious women, filthy women, were also there hanging from their breast. The first Aqabah pledge. We have already spoken about the 6 Madanis who embraced Islam in the pilgrimage season in the 11th year of prophethood. They promised to communicate the message of Islam to their townsfolk. The following year, on the occasion of the pilgrimage, there came a group of 12 disciples ready to acknowledge Muhammad as their prophet. The group of men comprised 5 of the 6 who had met the Prophet ﷺ the year before. The 6th who stayed away was Jabir bin Abdullah bin Riyab. The other 7 were Mu'ad bin al-Harith bin Afra from Khazraj, Dhakwan bin Abd al-Qais from Khazraj, Ubadah bin As-Samit from Khazraj, Yazid bin Salabah from Khazraj, Al-Abbas bin Ubadah bin Nadala from Khazraj, Abdul Haytham bin al-Tayhan from Aus, Uwaym bin Sa'idah from Aus. They avowed with their faith in Prophet Muhammad as a prophet and swore, we will not worship anyone but only one Allah, and we will not steal, neither we will commit adultery nor kill our children. We will not utter slander intentionally for forging falsehood, and we will not disobey you in any just matter. When they had taken the pledge, Muhammad said, he who carries it out, Allah will reward him, and who neglects anything and who neglects anything and is afflicted in this world, it may prove redemption for him in the hereafter. And if the sins remain hidden from the eyes of the men and no grief comes to him, then his affair is with Allah. He may forgive him or he may not. The Muslim envoy in Medina. After the pledge in the form of an oath being taken, the Prophet sent to Yathrib, Medina, Mus'ab bin Umair al-Abdari radiyallahu anhu, the first Muslim ambassador, to teach the people there the doctrines of Islam, give them practical guidance, and make attempts to propagating the Islam among those who still profess polytheism. As'ad bin Zurara hosted him in Mecca, in Medina. As'ad bin Zurara hosted him in Medina. So prepared was the ground and so zealous the propagation that Islam spread rapidly from house to house and from tribe to tribe. One day Mus'ab and As'ad were on their way to habitations of Bani Abd al-Ashhal and Bani Zafar. When they went into the premises of the lateral clan, there they sat near a well conversing with some new converts. Sa'ad bin Mu'ad and Usaid bin Hudayr, chief of the two clans, heard of this meeting. So Usaid approached the Muslims armed with his lanes, while the other Sa'ad excused himself on ground that As'ad was his maternal cousin. Usaid came closer, cursing and swearing, and accused the two men of befooling people weak of heart, and ordered that they stop it altogether. Musa'ab calmly invited him to sit, saying, "If you are pleased with our talk, you can accept it. Should you hold it abhorrence, you could freely immunize yourself and against what you hate." "That's way," said Usaid, pierced his lens and sand, listened to Mus'ab, and then heard some verses of the noble Quran. His face bespoke satisfaction and pleasure. Before uttering any word of approval, he asked the two men about the procedures pertinent to embracing Islam. They asked him to observe washing, purge his garment, bear witness to the truth, and then perform 2 rakah. He responded and did exactly what he was asked to do. And then asked there was a man, Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, whose people would never hang back if he followed Islam. He then left to see Sa'ad in his people and his people. Sa'ad could immediately understand that Usaid had changed. To a question posed by Sa'ad, Usaid said the two men were ready to comply with whatever orders they received. He then managed a certain situation that provided the two men with a chance to talk with Sa'ad privately. The previous scenes with Usaid recurred, and Sa'ad embraced Islam and directly turned to his people, swearing that he would never talk with them until they had believed in Allah and in His Messenger. Hardly did the evening of that day arrive when all the men and women of that sex of Arabians embraced Islam, with the exceptions of one, Al-Usayrim, who hung back until the day of Uhud. On that day, he embraced Islam and fought the polytheists, but was eventually killed before observing any prostration in the way of prayer. The Prophet ﷺ commented, saying, "He had done a little, but his reward is great." Mus'ab stayed in Medina, carrying out his mission diligently and successfully until all the houses of Al-Ansar, the future helpers, and had Muslims elements, men and women. One family only stood obdurate to the Islamic da'wah. They were under the influence of the poet Qais bin al-Aslat, who managed to hold them at bay and screen off the call of Islam from their ears until the year 5 Hijri. Shortly before the approach of the following pilgrimage season, that is the 13th year of the prophethood, Mus'ab bin Umair returned to Mecca, carrying to the Prophet glad tidings about the new fertile soil of Islam in Medina and its environment rich in the prospect of good and the power and immunity that the city was bound to provide to the cause of Islam. The second Aqabah pledge. The next year, 13th of prophethood, June 622 AD, during the pilgrimage season, over 70 converts from Medina came in the trial of the polytheist people to perform the ritual of pilgrimage in Mecca. They often repeated questions. Amongst them was, "Isn't it high time we protect Muhammad instead of leaving him forsaken, deserted, and stumbling in the hillocks of Mecca?" They met the Prophet secretly in a hillock at Al-Aqabah the last year's meeting place, we were 70. We were 70 men. We were 73 men and 2 women. Nusaybah bint Ka'ab from the Najjar and Asma bint Amr from Bani Salama. We waited for the Messenger of Allah until he came in the company of his uncle Al-Abbas bin Al-Muttalib, who, though himself not a Muslim, adjured us to not draw his nephew away from the protection of his own kindred unless we were fully prepared to defend him even at the risk of our life. He was the first to speak. O you people of the Khazraj, the Arab used to call the Ansars Khazraj, whether from Khazraj or Aus, you all know the position that Muhammad holds amongst us. We have protected him from our people as much as we could. He is honored and respected among his people. He refuses to join any party except you. So if you think you can carry out what you promised while inviting him to your hometown, and if you can defend him against the enemies, then assume the burden that you have taken. But if you are going to surrender him and betray him after having taken him away with you, you had better leave him now, because he is respected and well defended in his own place. Qa'ab replied, we have heard your words, and now, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is for you to speak and take from us any pledge that you want regarding your Lord and yourself. Narrated by Ka'ab, he said, the Prophet ﷺ began to speak, recited some Quranic verses and called people unto Allah, exhorted them to enter the fold of Islam, and concluded saying, I give you my pledge that you debar me from whatever you debar your women and children from. Here Al-Barra bin Ma'rur caught him by hand and said, Oh yes, we swear by Allah, who sent you as a prophet in truth, that we will debar you from whatever we debar our women from. Have confidence in us, O Messenger of Allah. By Allah, we are genuine fighters and quite reliable in war. It is a trait passed down to us from our ancestors. Then Abdul Haytham at-Tayhan interrupted and said, O Prophet of Allah, between us and the Jews there are agreements which we would then sever. If Allah grants you power and victory, should we expect that you would not leave us and join the ranks of your people, meaning going back to Quraysh? The Prophet ﷺ smiled and replied, Nay, it would never be. Your blood will be my blood. In life and death, I will be with you and you with me. I will fight whom you fight, and I will make peace with those with whom you make peace. With respect to the women, the pledge was taken orally, for the Prophet ﷺ had never shaken hand with a strange lady. The Prophet ﷺ then asked the group to appoint 12 deputies to preach Islam to their people in Medina. The deputies selected were 9 from Al-Khazraj and the remaining from Aus. The people from Khazraj were Sa'ad bin Zurarah bin Ads, Sa'ad bin Al-Rabi' bin Amr, Abdullah bin Rawaha bin Al-Talaba, Rafi bin Malik bin Al-Ajlan, Al-Barrah bin Al-Ma'rur bin Sakr, Abdullah bin Amr bin Haram, Ubadah bin As-Samit bin Qais, Sa'ad bin Ubadah bin Tulaym, Al-Munzir bin Amr bin Samak, Sa'ad bin Qaythamah bin Al-Harith, and Rifa'a bin Abdul Munzir bin Zubayr. Somehow or other, the news of these sects' desert meetings with the Madanis leaked out. The Prophet immediately knew that it was a certain purgy, ugly devil inhabited in Aqabah, who discovered their meeting, and he threatened to settle his account with him as soon as possible. On hearing this, Al-Abbas bin Nadla said, By Allah, who has sent you in truth, we are powerful enough to put the people of Mina, that is the Quraysh, to our swords tomorrow if you desire. The Prophet ﷺ said, We have not been commanded to follow that course. Now back to your camps. Then they went back to sleep till morning. No sooner did Quraysh, no sooner did Quraysh hear of this treaty than a kind of trouble-provoking tumult began to mushroom in all directions. They addressed the Madanese, O people of Khazraj, it is transpired to us that you have come here to conclude a treaty with this man Muhammad and evacuate him out of Mecca. By Allah, we do really hold in abhorrence any sort of fight between you and us. The Madanese politists, having known nothing about the secretly taken pledge, began to swear by Allah and answered in good faith that there was no truth in the report. The Madanese Muslims, however, remained silent, neither negating nor confirming. The Quraysh leader seemed to be almost convinced by the arguments presented by the politists and went back home frustrated. That is the story of the second Aqabah pledge, later known as the Great Aqabah Pledge, effected in an atmosphere of love, allegiance, and mutual support between Madanese believers and weak Meccan Muslims. The Vanguard of Migration. In the cause of Allah, after the endorsement of second Aqabah pledge and establishment of a petite Muslim state in a vast desert surging with disbelief and ignorance, the most serious gain in terms of Islam, the Prophet ﷺ gave his leave for the Muslims to migrate to Medina. The first one to migrate was Abu Salama a year before the Great Aqabah pledge. When he had made up his mind to leave Mecca, his in-laws, in a desperate attempt to raise obstacles, detained his wife and snatched his son and dislocated his hand. Another instance of the atrocities of the politist Meccans, as recorded migration in, is Suhaib. They began to insult him, claiming that he had come to Mecca as a worthless tramp. They gave orders that he would not leave. Seeing this, he offered to give away all his wealth to them. They eventually agreed. The Prophet heard this story and commented on it as saying, Suhaib is the winner after all. Within 2 months of the second Aqabah pledge, entire quarters of Mecca were deserted. Almost all the followers of Muhammad had migrated to their new abode, except Abu Bakr, Ali, and the Prophet ﷺ himself, and those helpless noble souls who had been detained in confinement or were unable to escape. The Prophet ﷺ, together with Abu Bakr and Ali, had made all necessary preparations for the migration but was waiting for leave from his Lord. Abu Bakr was, however, urging the Prophet to depart from that town, but the Prophet told him that the time had not yet come. The Lord had not given him the command to migrate. In anticipation of the command of Allah, Abu Bakr had made all preparation for the journey. He had purchased 2 swift camels and had fed them properly for 4 months so that he could successfully stand the ordeals of the long desert journey. That's for today. We'll come up with the next chapter as soon as possible. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please share and subscribe to the channel so most of us benefit from this. Jazakumullah wa khair.